Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, it's Saturday night. We've got in this corner the Challenger, the lightweight, the Japanese handle. And in this corner, the traditional heavyweight Western handle. Today we're talking about knife handles. If you have explored the world of kitchen knives, especially Japanese kitchen knives at all, you've probably encountered a different style of handle. If you are, in Europe or North America, you're probably pretty familiar with this guy. This is a pretty basic European style knife handle. But this guy might have showed up in your searches. You might be curious about it, whether it's right for you, whether it's durable enough for you. So today we're going to talk about both styles of knife handle, the pros and cons of each one, and which one's probably going to be right for you. All right, so first up, we've got two distinct and different handle styles. This guy is what we often call a Japanese style knife handle, often referred to as a wa handle, wa being a prefix for anything that's Japanese. And this guy, like I said, is a European or Western style handle, often called a yo handle, yo being a prefix for things that are not Japanese. This guy has more of a traditional, elegant look that I think you would imagine when you picture, a Japanese knife. Whereas this guy has more what you think of when you think of a chef's knife or a French knife. Just on the visual basis, that's entirely personal preference. So if one appeals to you, you should just go in that direction if that's what feels right to you. Now, where you're going to notice a big difference is in the actual feel of the knife. A Japanese style handle is much lighter. It doesn't have the full tang of steel that goes all the way through the handle. It instead has a skinnier tang, that's the piece of metal that goes into the handle, that just goes about this far down into the handle. So that means a lot less steel in the handle, means a lot less weight in the handle. That's going to put the balance of the knife more forward. So when you're cutting, the weight of the knife is going to be focused on the blade. Now I find that allows the knife to do a little more of the work on its own and makes the cutting feel a bit easier. The Western handle, because it has way more weight in the hand, has more of a feeling of confidence. A lot of us in the West associate weight with quality, and while that can be a misleading association, it's just what a lot of people are comfortable with. And so if that's what you like, the Western handle is going to feel better to you. If you're used to using one of these, which most of us are, you're going to feel this guy is a little weird at first. It's going to throw you off, but with a tiny bit of practice, it's going to be very natural to you. Because next thing is feel of the handle. The Japanese style handle, to me, feels the best. The Western style handles are contoured, and so at a glance they're a little more ergonomic, but I find because I hold my knife by the blade, I'm not actually taking advantage of that swell that happens midway down the handle. That's kind of designed for people who hold their knife a little further back, but I like to have more leverage, and so I hold my knife further forward. Now the Western handle doesn't feel bad by any means, but I do find the Japanese handle you almost forget it's there. It becomes a part of your hand, and that's what I like most about it. You also tend to see more variation in the Japanese style handle. This guy is what we call an oval handle. If you look down the handle, it's an oval shape. Pretty self-explanatory. They also come in more of a teardrop shape with a bit of a ridge along one side, sometimes called a D shape. That ridge will usually be along the right-hand side and designed to kind of fit into your fingers, but a lot of lefties find it actually quite comfortable as well. A fan favorite, and my personal preference, is the octagonal handle. It just has a little more texture to it, and so you feel the knife a little bit more. I mentioned how sometimes that handle can almost feel like it disappears. This guy, you always know where it's at, and it gives you a little more feedback when you're using your knife. You'll see variations in the Western handle as well, but they're mostly in how far the steel goes back, therefore how heavy the handle is, or how much and how aggressively contoured the handle is. Now here's where some people can get a little bit misled. I've been selling knives for over a decade, and I have heard so many times people say, well, isn't this handle going to be less durable? Isn't it going to break more easily than this? It could, I guess, but that actually doesn't matter, because this guy, although a great handle design, it's over-engineered for a kitchen knife. If you're doing anything with a chef's knife, especially a slightly more delicate Japanese knife that requires that durable of a handle, you're using the knife wrong. Kitchen knives, and especially Japanese knives, should not be used as cleavers or hammers for any sort of aggressive smashing or gardening or anything that's going to require this durable of a handle. So if you like this handle, great, but you don't need to worry about this handle being durable enough. And if anything does happen to the handle, this is actually going to be a better design. See, back in the day, Japanese knives were made out of high carbon steel. Some still are. So chefs would often, at the end of the day, remove their knife handle, dry and oil the whole knife so that it didn't rust inside of the handle. Nowadays, handles are fixed on a lot more solidly, usually with some kind of glue, but they are fairly straightforward to remove if you have to. These riveted handles are very difficult to replace. You have to grind everything off and basically re-rivet it, which is not something we can do or you can do at home very easily. So if your handle dries out too much and splits, or your dog gets a hold of it and chews on it, happens more than you think, or gets burned or whatever, this guy is very easy to replace. And you can just bring it to your local Knifewear store and we'll replace it for you. This guy, not so easy to replace. Not something we can do, not something most knife stores can do. Now, one last detail you might want to be aware of. Some Japanese knife handles are untreated. In fact, most are. They'll sand it and then just kind of call it a day. Now, you can and should oil it every now and then. That'll darken the wood with time. But some of these lighter handles can stain more easily. If you're handling beets and then you pick up your knife handle is going to be pink. Probably forever. Now personally, I usually go for darker knife handles. It's just my preference. And so these guys just stain and get darker and it's not really a concern. But if you're buying one with a lighter colored handle, that's something you're gonna wanna be aware of, and you're gonna wanna make sure your hands are clean before you pick up your knife. So which one's better? It's totally up to you. The Japanese style handle, I prefer. I find it more ergonomic, lighter weight, much easier to replace and fix. But the Western style handle is very familiar and very comfortable. Often if you're buying a knife for, your first knife, or it's a gift for somebody, maybe you want to go that more familiar route so that as you learn to use a new tool, you don't have to get used to too many changes at once. At the end of the day, if it's a good quality knife, there's no wrong choice. Just don't feel like you have to choose one or the other. Or if you're like me, you build a collection and you have a whole bunch of each. So let me know in the comments below which knife handle is your favorite. And if you have any more questions about finding your first knife, hit us up and we'll help you out. YouTube, ding that bell, like the video, subscribe.